Hello guys and welcome back to another video. So you guys might know that I am now officially back in Australia. I've been back in Australia for around 3 weeks now, and there are definitely some things which I have noticed and things that have stood out to me being back in Australia. For you guys who don't know, I spent 2 years in Australia and basically was out of Australia for just over a year. I went to Southeast Asia, went back home to the UK for a visit. I lived in New Zealand for a bit as well. But yeah, have actually been out of Australia for over a year. And being back for a third year definitely feels different in some ways. And there were definitely some things which I have noticed, which I'll go on to in this video. So for you guys who aren't subscribed to the channel, make sure you subscribe and feel free to like the video. And yeah, let's get into it. So 7 things that I've learned returning to Australia. Some of them will be compared to my previous experience in Australia. Some of them will be things that stood out to me after living in New Zealand, for example. So first point is how friendly the people are. Now, I knew that Aussies were friendly and I've always had good relationships with Australian people, but for some reason, I don't know, this time round, Aussies seem so much nicer. I don't know if it's after being in New Zealand, where, don't get me wrong, people in New Zealand are very nice as well, but they're a bit more closed off and not quite as social. They're a bit more reserved than Australian people. Australian people are a lot more like happy to speak to you and stuff. But it's definitely stood out to me how nice and how helpful Australian people have been traveling. Even just little things like interacting with people in the shops, like someone serving you. People are so much more talkative, so much more nice compared to people in New Zealand. Again, this is not a dig at New Zealand people because they are very, very nice when you get to know them, but I think they are a lot more reserved. Aussies, from my experience being back in Australia, I forgot how much I like Aussies, and they are also so much funnier than I remember. It's definitely nice to be around the accents and stuff. Not gonna lie, I didn't realise how much I missed Aussies. Number 2 is the prices have unfortunately gone up in Australia. I mean, this is a bit of a obvious one, of course the prices are going up, but yeah, Australia is more expensive than I remember. Now, I remember when I moved to New Zealand after living in Australia, I was shocked at how expensive New Zealand was, particularly for food. It was a big shock to the system because I thought Australia was expensive, but New Zealand was a different level. Moving back to Australia, I didn't get the same feeling with how cheap Australia was compared to New Zealand. Yes, it's a little bit cheaper for things like food, but it's, yeah, the prices have gone up, I think, since I left. Rent is definitely gone up. We've been traveling and even looking for places in small towns, not the cities. I couldn't believe how much rent has gone up in even smaller towns. And yeah, I think overall, the prices in Australia have unfortunately gone up quite a lot. Number 3 is I could not believe how much it felt like home. Now, when I first moved to Australia, for some reason, it just felt like home from the minute I got here. And I don't even know why that's the case. I didn't get that same feeling with New Zealand. In Asia, I loved Southeast Asia and traveling there, but I even missed Australia when I was there. But for some reason, moving back to Australia, I could not believe how much it felt like home. In fact, I went back to the UK for a visit, and moving back to Australia probably felt more homely than it did moving back to the UK. The UK felt a bit like, I don't know, I didn't really feel like I belonged there. I didn't really feel like my home anymore. But moving to Australia, you know, I don't think I'll stay here forever, of course. I think I will eventually move back, but I couldn't believe how much it initially felt like home when I moved back here, and it's a pretty nice feeling, to be honest. The next 2 points are, I guess, specific to what it's like moving from New Zealand to Australia, and that is that there's so much more to do in Australia, and also there's so many more travelers and backpackers to meet. These are 2 things which I have 100% noticed after moving from New Zealand, and there is just so much more to do in Australia. We're doing a bit of traveling at the minute, but we moved to Brisbane for like the first couple of days, kept traveling, but even just being in the city of Brisbane, I can't even explain how much more there is to do than there is in Auckland, for example. Australia, there is just so much to do, and I think because the weather is amazing, everything is, you know, you can do so much. You can go outside and just do so much more than you could in the UK or in New Zealand, because they're the last 2 countries that I've been in. There is just so much to do in Australia. I think a big part of that is the weather. There's so many more activities for someone who likes to spend time outdoors and stuff, I just instantly feel like I want to go outside and explore. I don't really get that urge in New Zealand and the UK because the weather's not as good, it's colder. Being back here in Australia, I just have this urge to constantly be outside and exploring. And also the backpackers, this was something which I've gone into before about New Zealand, and it's one of the things which I think I didn't like about New Zealand, and that's because there was hardly any backpackers or travelers that I've met. I met more travelers and backpackers in less than a week in Australia than I did in my entire time in New Zealand. And you can't even tell me that it's because I haven't traveled New Zealand, because that was in one place in Australia, in one city. So yeah, if you're a traveler, I think it's definitely the better place. But I've noticed that 100% coming back is there are backpackers, travelers everywhere, particularly English travelers. And it's nice for someone who's, you know, traveling themselves to be surrounded by a lot of other backpackers. And that's one thing I've 100% noticed being back in Australia, is how many travelers there are. And the last point that I've noticed being back in Australia is how many food options there are. Food, like restaurants, little places to get food, but also cafes, bars. There's so much variety and choice. I didn't realise when I was in Australia originally that there was this much. But after being in the UK, being in New Zealand, as I said, there is so much choice in Australia for food, for drinks. If you want to get a snack, you want to eat out, I feel like Australia has the most amazing food choices. And it definitely stood out to me a lot after being in other countries. And yeah, it's a nice surprise, to be fair, because Australia, for outdoor bars, restaurants, and other things like that, it is so good. So they are some things which I learned returning to Australia after being out of the country for about, you know, just over a year. Definitely some things which almost shocked me again, that I almost forgot existed in Australia, and some things which I've definitely missed, which I've definitely felt straight away after moving back to Australia. It definitely feels nice to be back, I've got to say. I've definitely noticed a lot of things since being back, and I've missed a lot of things when I was away, and it's good to be back in Australia. If you want to see more content, more advice, more points of view from me, but also vlogs of our time in Australia, make sure you subscribe to the channel, because there is a lot more to come in Australia. And yeah, thank you for watching, and I'll see you very soon with another video.